first social studies passage for today. Now, quick question. I know a lot of you mentioned this is a few of you mentioned this is your first time joining us for GD Live session, but have any of you attended? For those of you who are GD veterans, have you attended any of our RLA sessions, the Reading Language Arts sessions? If you've attended any of those, you might be familiar with the idea of how to read, awesome, how to read, not to memorize everything, because let's be honest, are these passages going to be interesting on the GED Social Studies test? Are they going to be interesting? Are you going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to read about during World War I, the U.S. National War Garden Commission? Of course not, right? Leah, sorta, if you're lucky, let's be honest, right? If you're lucky, they'll be sort of interesting, right? But the reality is it's probably not going to be that interesting, right? So what you want to do, as Roger mentioned, Roger, you did attend those sessions, right? You want to kind of streamline your thinking here, streamline how you read these passages so that you're looking for the main topic or the main point, or sometimes a certain transitional word or keyword can give you a sense of direction about where the passage is going. I'll give you a quick example, actually. I know some of you don't read this passage yet, but let me give you a quick example, right, of what it means, of what a keyword is, okay? If I said something like this, I'm going to actually put this on the screen. I like cats. For instance, blank. Give me something that would logically work in the blank. That would just simply make the sentence make sense in your own words. Put in anything you'd like. I like cats. For instance, blank. So, Roger, you're giving me an example of a type of cat that I like. Good. Miguel, give me an example of a color of a cat I like. I actually do have two black cats, Miguel. I don't know if you've attended a session before. Maybe I mentioned that before, but yes, I have two black cats. I love they were just wrestling each other for a moment ago. I like cats. For instance, silly cats. Yes, Asher, right? Like an example of a type of characteristic or quality that you'd like about those cats, right? So you're all giving me very logical examples of something that will fit in the blank, right? But what if I gave you this sentence instead? I like cats. However, blank. Fill in the blank in this case. I like cats. However, blank. Again, anything that would make this sentence logically work. I like cats. However, dogs are my favorite. I like cats. However, dogs are better. Ava, we're going to have to agree to disagree on that one. I do like dogs. But I do like cats better. I like cats. However, I'm allergic to them. All of you give me a reason why you wouldn't like cats, right? Definitely the I'm allergic definitely comes up, right? However, I don't like the smell of their litter. Oh boy, Roger, as a cat father of two, yes, I can definitely attest why that the litter box can get very stinky. So notice, right? So notice in these two examples, you gave me very different fill in the blanks there, right? Very different. But what was literally the only difference in these two examples? What was literally the only difference? If you look at those sentences, what's the only difference? And specifically, Leo, what word? The transition word, the key word, right? In the first example, we had for instance. The words for instance helped you anticipate what's coming next, right? So when you see for instance, oh, there's going to be some sort of example. But when you saw the word however, what did that signal to you about the blank? As D mentions, exactly, some sort of contrast. So you gave me some contrast, right? I like cats, however, I'm allergic to them, which would be a reason why you would not like cats, right? So that's the difference between for instance and however. That's how you can actually, in some ways, speed up your reading. Not to like not to like memorize everything as you're going, but if you see a word like however, then you know there's going to be a contrast. If you see a word like for example, it's going to be a continuation. If you see a word like therefore, what do you suppose? Therefore blank. What sort of signal do you get from the word therefore blank? Tell me if you tell me if you have an idea, or tell me if you can answer that. If you said, or even if I said, like, I like cats, therefore, can you tell me what would fit in that sort of blank? Or because of that. Good, right? I have my own, right? Some sort of conclude. And I like what you did there, Irma. I got three more. Almost like a final statement, right? Almost like I'm putting a period on that, right? That's my thing. So the word therefore, for instance, might be like an example of a conclusion. Right? Does that make sense? Or an effect. Yes, D, right? Cause and effect. I like cats is the cause. The effect, I'm going to go get a whole bunch of them. Give me a yes if that makes sense. Give me a quick yes in the chat if that makes sense. Let us know in the Q&A with teacher Laura if you need any clarification on that. So that's one of the ways to help you with this kind of reading style, about if you notice any particular like keywords or transitional words without having to memorize everything, you just know what to expect. Let's practice this with this passage. Take a look at the passage. I'm going to read this out loud, and I'm going to read this out loud. If your sound went out, try just logging out and logging back in. Sorry, I had to type it because you can't hear me if I say it. All right, so let's take a look at this passage. And again, as I'm reading this out loud, if there are certain words or certain phrases that you hear, they're like, okay, that's signaling something to me. That's telling me something about the main idea. I think, Roger, you mentioned that earlier, right? The main idea within this paragraph. Pop it in the chat. You don't even have to wait for me to finish reading the passage. Let's take a look at this one. During World War I, the U.S. National War Garden Commission began a campaign to encourage private citizens to grow their own food as a means of supporting the war effort. This practice, I'm going to stop right here actually. Even the word this. What makes the word, what, if this passage started with the sentence, this practice became very popular, what's the problem with that? If this passage started with this practice became very popular, you wouldn't know what the practice is, right? That became very popular, right? So you know that even the word this is referring to something. And what's it referring to? Oh, the private citizens growing their own food. Okay, so growing their own food became popular. Let's go on from there. With increased private food production, the government could reserve much of the cheaper mass produced food for the troops. The money saved in feeding soldiers freed up resources for other military needs. In addition, stop right there. Just tell me, when the sentence starts with the words in addition, what can you already know is coming after the words in addition? Adding more to it. Good. So in this case, right, well, if the sentence right before it said the money saved in feeding soldiers freed up resources, in addition, we're going to get another good thing, right? Another thing about the saving the money and making something good out of this. So let's look at the next sentence. Planting war gardens, also known as victory gardens, gave American citizens a sense of empowerment. So, what do we see from this paragraph, right? Well, the whole thing, again, we're not trying to memorize everything as we go, but this was about what? Planting the practice of growing their own food. It helped with the war, and it helped with citizens feeling good about the war, right? So basically, the main idea in this paragraph would be something like this: the National War Garden Commission. Obviously, you don't need to write out all the words, but I do encourage you to at least jot down something when you're taking the test itself, right? Jot down a quick note about what the passage is about as you're reading. Don't wait till you get to the end of the passage. But as you're reading the passage, think, okay, what's the main thing that's being brought up? Oh, this whole thing about gardens, and oh, it's growing their own food, helping the military, helping the war, right? So that's the paragraph, right? About how it encouraged private gardens. Give me a yes in chat. So far, so good up to this point, right? So we just looked at paragraph, right? Now, if you saw something similar to this on test day, there would also be a political cartoon or photograph or something. But notice we didn't go to the photograph first. We went to the passage first to give us context. So now let's take a look at the accompanying photo for this passage. So first, what are some of the things what's the first thing, if you remember, that we want to look for without trying to like memorize the photograph or memorize every single word? What's the first thing we care about the most when we see a photograph? Okay, again, Leah, don't worry about the photo itself. But remember, we mentioned something earlier. The first thing you want to look for is the title. Right? Do you remember that? Or the caption. Good, Ovian, right? So in here, the title, will you have a part in victory? Oh boy, right? And we see that even in the photo itself. Will you have a part in victory, right? Well, why would it be titled like this? Now you look at the picture, right? You see the picture. I think Leah, you mentioned a lady wearing the flag. What else is she doing besides wearing a flag as a dress? What else is she doing here in this photo? Look carefully at this photo. What else is she doing? She's spreading seeds. She's throwing seeds. Oh, it sounds like she's growing a garden, right? And in fact, if you notice the caption, so not just the title, but someone mentioned earlier about the caption. What's happening here at the bottom? Every garden, a munition plant. Oh boy, that sounds pretty. That sounds pretty heavy there, right? Like all the gardens that you make are munition plants. And I like what you said there, Olivine. The title is challenging you to get involved. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it, Olivine. Nice job there, right? Basically, right, the point of this poster, notice, is this poster neutral or is this poster trying to help you take a position, right? And what Olivine said earlier was so important. Challenging you, right? It's not like oh, here's some war gardens, right? This is what a war garden is. No, that's not what they're saying. They're trying to persuade you, become part of this movement. Good, right? So again, the poster connects the gardens with the idea of winning the war abroad. Now, I don't know about you, but that's a little bit of a stretch, right? Like planting a garden is going to help win the war? I would think, capturing the bad guys would be the way to win the war, right? Like, right? Like it's kind of weird, right? If you think about it, right? Like planting a garden's gonna help me win the war. So they're definitely being like, okay, here's the small way you can get involved, right? Yes, exactly, Roger, right? Uncle Sam pointing the point, right? You remember Roger, the point in the picture, right? I want you, right? Again, there's no Uncle Sam that's like going around threatening people saying like you better join the army. But it's a way to take a position, right? And the position there is basically, hey, join us for battle, protect our freedoms, etc., right? So basically, this poster is connecting the idea of planting gardens with winning the war. Yeah, maybe a little bit of a stretch, maybe. But certainly there is a little bit of a connection there. So with that, now again, we've read this and analyzed the photograph in the ideal way, right? We didn't get overwhelmed by the text, hopefully. We didn't get overwhelmed by the picture and say, well, what am I supposed to do with this picture? We looked at the title, we looked at the caption. Then we looked at the picture. What's going on here? Oh, the whole idea, she's starting a garden and she's wearing the American flag, so making the connection there. With that, let's take a look at a couple examples here. So I'm going to give you a minute actually to try question number one on your own. When you have an answer, don't put your answer in the chat, but instead put your answer in the poll that's going to jump up on your screen right about now. I believe now. Um, and I'm going to give you about 1 minute to try this on your own. When you have an answer, put your answer into the poll, and after that, we'll go over this one together. Good luck. And and the other thing I want to mention as we look at this question, right? I mean, there may be a question where you don't know the meaning of all the answer choices. That might happen. Oh no, does that mean it's the end of the world? Oh no, there's no way to get this one right? Well, there's no substitute for knowing the definition of all the words, but even if you don't know the definitions of all the words, there are probably some you can eliminate here. So let's take a look at question number one. Which of the following best describes the poster's use of the word victory? So, where do we see the word victory in this poster? Where do we see the word victory in this poster, everybody? It's in the title, right? Will you have a part in victory? Well, again, what's this poster about, though, in terms of the victory? Right, it's right. The victory is supposed to be about the war. What is this poster challenging people to do? As someone mentioned, challenging. Well, is it, again, just to be clear, is it encouraging people to fight in the war? Is this a recruitment poster? What's happening in the poster? The war gardens, right? Like making food. So just to be clear, right? How are we supporting the war effort? Are we going into battle? Are we learning how to use weapons? Are we joining the army or the Marines or the Navy? No. We're gardening. What? Right? Like again, it's a little bit of a stretch, right? But yeah, if we plant a garden, we'll support our country going to war. So again, it's a little bit of a stretch here, right? A little bit. Which of those choices then best describes the poster's use of the word victory? And from the results here, I see a majority of you did put down answer choice C, which is the correct answer. What is it mean to be propagandistic or even propaganda, if you're more familiar with that word? What does it mean to have propaganda? So persuasive, persuade. I would say it's going even a little bit further than that, right? Not even just like persuading, but if you have like propaganda, it's like I'm trying to think of a good example of this. Man, I don't know if teacher Laura has one. Yeah, Roger, that's actually a good way of saying it, right? Using biased, one-sided information, maybe misleading, right? Maybe yeah, being biased. Yep, absolutely. That's a great, so thank you, Roger, for that. That well said, right? So here, right, it's kind of biased, right? To be like saying like, yeah, help us out win the war by planting a garden. Hmm? Right? So that's why answer choice C is your correct answer. Real quick, some of you did put down answer choice B. What does it mean to be informative? What does it mean to be informative? to teach, to be giving information. And I like what Roland said there. It's a very neutral word, right? To be informative. Is the word victory being used to teach? Are we learning about what victory means from this poster? No, right? The word victory is meant to like rile us up, right? The word victory is meant to like get us motivated. Yeah, how can we help out? All right, I'm going to plant my own corn. That's why informative doesn't work here. Informative would just mean like giving information or to teach here, but that's not what's happening with the word victory. Okay. Nice job here with this one. Please let us know in the Q&A if you have any other questions on this one. I'll have you try one more here. Question number 2, same thing. I'll give you a minute to try this one on your own. Put your answer into the poll, and after that, we'll go over this one together. Good luck. All right, let's take a look at this one. So, the question here is asking what is meant by the poster's caption, every garden a munition plants? Well, again, if you take a look here, this is our caption, right? Every garden a munition plant. What are these gardens supposed to represent based on not just the photograph, but if you remember, there was a passage that was attached to this as well. What does that so in your own words, what does that mean to say every garden a munition plants? Because these gardens aren't literally munition plants, right? We're not planting guns, we're not planting weapons, we're not planting ammo. But what's the point of these gardens? And if you need to, go back to the passage if you need to. What is the point of all these gardens? To help out, to help with the supply, right? To conserve, right? The food that we plant means that there's other food for the soldiers to have, right? It talked about with increased private food production, the government could reserve much of the cheaper mass produced food for the troops, not to be dependent on the government during a hard time. Nicely said there, Max. Good. So, with that, going back to this question, what is meant by that poster's caption? And the correct answer is dun, 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 dun. Nice job here. Strong majority of you, almost 80% of you put down answer choice C. Citizens who plant war gardens help supply the war effort with essential resources. Nice work here with this one. All right. Let us know in the Q&A if you have any other questions. And again, I saw a quick note about that previous question. Remember, the thing that you want to be careful of for every GD question is to make sure you know what the question is asking for, right? So here, right, the specific thing we're looking for is what does the caption represent? Oh, the caption represents how if we plant war gardens for ourselves, it'll save resources for the soldiers. Even in the previous question, right? Even the previous question. The question here is not what does the poster say? The question specifically asking about the poster's use of the word victory. Why are they using the word victory? Oh, to get us motivated. Oh, to get us excited about helping the soldiers out. That's why it's propagandistic, right? I saw a couple questions come in the Q&A about that. I hope that helped clarify that a little bit. But again, the main point is just always be careful of what the question is specifically asking for. If this was just asking like, hey, what's this poster about? Oh, help out with the war. That would be informative. But the question's not asking what's the poster about. The question's asking why, what's the point of the word victory? Oh, to see how we can to get us excited about helping out people with this war. Okay. All right. All right. I hope that did help. Let us know again if you have any other questions on this. So now let's take a look at one more in this set. Take a look at question number 3. Same deal. I'll give you a minute to try this one on your own. We have an answer. Again, put your answer not in the chat, but in the poll for this one. Good luck. All right, let's take a look at this one together. So be careful here. What's the question asking for? The author's primary purpose in writing the paragraph accompanying the poster is most likely to what? So what are we focusing on? The paragraph or the poster? Yeah, it's the purpose of writing the paragraph. And the paragraph was about how the National War Garden Commission encouraged these private gardens. The poster connects gardens with winning the war. But again, we care about the paragraph itself. The paragraph wasn't trying to make this connection about patriotism and about like, hey, let's go and help the soldiers. The paragraph was describing the private gardens. And I'll show you the results here. And we were actually pretty evenly split between answer choices A and B. But remember, the question is asking us about the paragraph. The correct answer is answer choice A. Describe war gardens and explain their popularity in the United States. Okay. What is the problem with answer choice B, everybody? A lot of you put down B, but why is B the wrong answer for this question? Exactly what D just put in the chat. Nice job there, D, right? Answer choice B would be the purpose of the poster. The questioner is asking for the purpose in writing the paragraph. Okay. Moses is maybe that's like your go-to letter for any question that you might struggle with, right? Yeah, Miguel, good, right? You're noticing how this again, you're seeing that these are higher difficulty questions, but just a small thing that is the difference between a right answer and a wrong answer. But it's still a clear thing, right? It's a very clear thing. Angela, hey Angela, it doesn't matter if you got this one wrong. Does it make sense now that you've looked at this? Now that we've explained this, does it make sense? That's the important thing, right? Because now you're like, oh, I have to be careful when they bring up the two things in the question. Oh, what am I actually answering? Okay. All right. All right. Please, again, let us know, Angela and everyone else, if you do need any further clarification on this one. Okay. Yeah, let's take a look at this one. Okay. So in this passage, this definition of sustainability is from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA. So even from the first sentence, what do you suppose is the main idea of this paragraph? Even from the very first line, even from that background. Yeah, sustainability and the environment, right? So what is the connection there? Let's take a look at this passage. Sustainability is based on a simple principle. Everything that we need for our survival and well-being depends, either directly or indirectly, on our natural environment. Sustainability creates and maintains the conditions under which humans and nature can exist in productive harmony that permit fulfilling the social, economic, and other requirements of present and future generations. Sustainability is important in making sure we have and will continue to have the water, materials, and resources needed to protect human health and our environment. So, did anything change from that first part that you mentioned about, oh, this is going to be about sustainability in the environment, right? Did anything change from that? No, right? Basically, it's kind of like a definition of sustainability, tells us why sustainability is important, right? So basically, sustainability is a way to protect the environment. How do we break? Yes, exactly, Roger. How do we break? This paragraph is breaking down the definition of sustainability. So, right, talking about social, economic, other requirements, helping future generations, water, material resources, et cetera, et cetera. I'll give you a minute to try question on your own. Question number 4. When you have an answer, put your answer into the poll. Give you 1 minute. Good luck. All right, let's take a look at this. So the question here, which 3 graphs, so again, the GD doing us a solid here, saying like, there are definitely 3 graphs that represent the concept of sustainability. And by the way, we have the we have like a multiple choice question here, but if you notice where it says click on the 3 graphs, so we just made this into a multiple choice question. But on test day, you might have a question where you literally have to click on which of these 5, and you'd have to click on 3 of them and then essentially submit that answer. Okay. So we want to know about the concept of which graphs relate to the concept of sustainability. Now, going back into that passage, again, you don't want to like guess on something like this, right? What are some of the things that they mention about sustainability? What are some of those things they mention about sustainability? And you go ahead and just put like 1 or 2 in the chat. The big one right at the beginning, right? Environment, natural environment. Good, good, good. So we want natural environment. What else do they talk about? So there are a few different ideas here, right? Definitely the whole idea of natural environment. What else is mentioned? The resources, like Leah mentioned, right? Maintaining the conditions so that those resources are still around, right? And also, if you notice, what else is mentioned here? uh, Measured here, right? Economics, right? Things like things to help keep us alive, keep our future generations alive, right? Basically, that's what we're looking for here. So let's take a look at these choices charts one by one. So again, if this were a multiple choice question, you could kind of do this a little bit of shortcut, but let's take a look at each of these. So chart number 1, is chart number 1 related to sustainability? Yeah, it's about people, right? And people is kind of important when you talk about sustainability because we're literally saying sustainability is about protecting future generations. So if this were a multiple choice question, you know that chart, that table, graph number 1 is part of the correct answer. Take a look at the choices. Are there any choices you can eliminate? Yeah, why can we cancel B, everyone? Why can we cancel B? I think we said that D, cancel it, right? Because it doesn't consider graph 1 exactly. So let's get rid of that one altogether. Good. Graph number 2. Would this be related to the idea of sustainability? What is graph number 2 about? The damaging nature, deforested, right? Tropical air being deforested. So we can keep chart number two. We'll take a look at the choices. Are there any other choices we can cancel out? Exactly as Roland mentions, we can cancel out C as well. So if you notice, what's the only difference between the two remaining choices? What's the only difference between the two remaining choices? 4 and 5, right? So do we even need to look at number three? If the only difference between the two remaining choices is 4 and 5, do we even need to look at number three? We don't need to look at number three. Let's look at number four. Is number four related to sustainability, about resources? Sure, oil consumption. If we don't have enough oil, oh, that might be bad for the future. Are we done? Have we found the three graphs that relate to sustainability? We sure have. It's number one, number two, and number four. The correct answer, as a majority of you did put down, is indeed answer choice D. Good, 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 good. There you go. D is your answer. Nice work here with this one. All right. So this is an example of how you'd see tables, charts. And by the way, did you need to look at the numbers for any of these charts? Did anyone look at the numbers? Did any of you say, well, in graph number 4 in the US and Canada, it's about daily consumption per capita is almost about 3 gallons per capita in the US and Canada, whereas in other developed areas, it's about 1.4. Right? You didn't need to do that. You did not need to do that. Or even number one. Well, in 7000 BCE, there were barely any people, but certainly we see a big population growth after 1000 CE when the population goes from under a billion people to, wow, almost like 6 billion people. It's just the topics we care about. It's just the concepts. And that's what we mentioned before about not getting caught up in the actual data and just think about what the title is, what the graph is supposed to represent. Okay? Nice work here. As always, there's some mixed practice to help to check out in the PDF for extra practice on these topics.